meeting and
Yeah.
semi-unofficial, or semi-official, however you want to put it, but.
Stay real light.
Okay. And I guess we can call the meeting to order at 2 minutes after 3. Somebody help me. I think we're at section Roman numeral 5H, streets and roads. Everything above that we got marked out, didn't we?
What page is that?
Page
Page 63. We were at, yeah, we got 59 and then we wound up taking everything with that base flood elevation
Out.
from B.
Okay.
I believe we're gonna skip roads and move on and go try to make it through the rest.
That makes no difference to me.
I think that's wonderful.
Okay. I've got a bunch of deletes in there too, but we can, all I want to do is make a big dent in it.
So, just because I wasn't here for this part of it, overall, the reason we're going through these is if somebody wants to implement these.
It's the format that they were expecting to see for the consultant that the county hired.
For our,
Great West Engineering is the consultant that's going to put it together if there's enough money and time on the grant, as opposed to us doing it, we just give it back to them. This was their recommendation and it came from the Mako attorney, Tara Depew. So we finally decided after great length that probably we can still add things and take things out, but the best, easiest thing to do was just go through and line out the Richland County stuff that we don't want.
okay,
And then we can hand it to them, and if we lined out something that's required by law, then we'll have to take it back. But
okay.
we're just trying to simplify it. I mean,
Yeah.
how many pages was it, Jenny, that 2 times ago when we did this, we went from a book about this thick down to one about this thick. And that's,
Yeah.
you know, you gotta have the law in there, but there's no reason to add boilerplate.
No.
And half of this is boilerplate as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
90%.
So where are you starting at then?
Well, let's see, we'll come to a consensus here.
Do you want to start
We
with?
could either start at VK, 5K water supply. That could be, because that's right after the roads here, I think, isn't it?
We could start with the VI postal service.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mary, I didn't.
And what page is that? Oh, right here.
Page 78.
78.
Got it.
Page 78, Roman numeral 5I. Anybody have anything on that page, adds or deletions? The only thing I had was in the last sentence, the plan must, I had should or may include arrangements for driveway culverts.
Yeah, I found an issue with one of our subdivisions that if you don't have they won't turn around when working with the post office, we have a cul-de-sac. They won't go down the cul-de-sac and turn around. So if we go up to the top of the subdivision, one side of the land is owned by somebody else, and the other side, they don't want it on that side, and there's no place to put it where they want it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think you need to be very careful with,
Well,
it says in the subdivision.
unfortunately, my personal opinion is the Postal Service is an awful lot like Uncle in terms of the floodplain. You can argue with them all you want, but
Yeah,
save your time.
and maybe maybe the applicant, when feasible, must provide.
May provide.
Do you have a change there that you'd like to see, or on one of these?
When
or-
feasible, or the applicant, when feasible, will provide? I don't know. Or may, like Jenny said.
Oh, under stormwater drainage?
No, the postal service. Is it gonna be may or,
The subdivider may provide an off-street area for mail delivery instead of must.
Does this all apply to the when required by the U.S. Postal Service?
Yeah. And it depends on who's the postmaster. I understand what you're saying now. I was looking too far down here, I'm sorry.
that's okay. Like I said, we're very lucky that the person next to our subdivision gave us an easement to put the mailboxes on, but that may not always be the case.
If we're gonna do that, I'd rather see it something like the applicant should provide, after consultation with the Postal Service, something that's agreeable with the Postal Service for mail delivery. Because sometimes you might actually run into a reasonable person,
Yes, yes.
rather than just saying you have to put in a cluster or a gang or whatever.
I agree with you, because I think at some point, you're probably gonna be just doing what they want you to do anyway, and if this is restricting you from doing what they want you to do, then you're gonna run into problems that you can't,
I just make it general enough that, you know,
yeah.
after consultation with the post office,
I
you
don't see
need to comply with their, I don't know how
Their
exactly to word it, but
Sometimes the post office doesn't even want to do rural delivery to,
No,
they just get a PO box.
mhm. But to have it in there, Trinity's right, that, I wasn't even thinking about that, but that you don't want to limit the fact that it has to be done, and then say, no, you can't do it, or you don't want to do it this way. Bill?
Because I run into that same problem. When we first moved down there, the post office would not deliver at our home address because they said there wasn't enough room, it was a safety issue, yada, yada. And then until the highway department went in and widened the road and actually made a turnout, and then we just kept the PO box. But they're gonna be the ones that tell you if you can
Yeah.
deliver there or not. They just said it wasn't safe and we're not delivering there, get a PO box.
I'd say that more like the applicant should comply with Postal Service requirements for mail delivery. Does that sound reasonable?
That
Yeah.
sounds great.
sounds much better to
Sounds
me.
good.
Okay. Anything in J? I had jumped all the way to the bottom of the page.
Oh, okay. Now,
Same kind of thing, it's on storm drainage, but rather than saying must, they should make arrangements for driveway culverts. Sometimes the culvert's the right thing, and sometimes it's not.
I believe that's required, isn't it, with under 20 acres that you have to do
You
the
know, it's just a,
DEQ.
either should or the plan, or maybe even the plan may, that'd probably be better. The plan may include arrangements for driveway culverts.
So I'm just gonna play dumb here and ask the question, because, so if it's required in the county, then this is saying that we require a plan for it?
Well, this is becoming, it's already in our road standards. It's on the application for a driveway permit. You're supposed to put in a culvert,
Yeah,
but it's not enforced.
okay,
There's one, and I know Jenny can remember, up above the silos up there. Because it was a county road, it had to be DEQ, and it was access to a subdivision, and they put in a 40-inch culvert where a 24-inch or 48-inch where a little bitty thing would have done it.
oh, yeah,
But
I thought this stormwater drainage was to do with the lot and having the stormwater.
I'm sorry, Mary, with the mask on. I'm
Oh, that's
hard-
okay. I thought the stormwater drainage was to do with the, not the roads, but the lot itself and having a place for the storm.
I think so, but it becomes, stormwater for the most part's a DEQ, so there's no reason for us to get too fancy in my mind
Okay,
in terms of doing it.
so I guess, what is the wording then on the stormwater drainage facilities?
that's kind of what a question I have. If something is required by DEQ anyway,
Mhm.
right? How much do you have to have in here if they're gonna be required, if an engineer has to plat this thing and they have to come up with a stormwater plan anyway to pass DEQ, then what purpose does this serve?
Exactly.
Just what we were talking about
Okay.
before the meeting.
I was just wondering why we have it in here. I mean,
Well, it's not, we have it in here,
They have it
Richland
in.
County has it in
Yes.
there. All I was trying to do was just to make things simple. The upper portion, A, has to be there because that's Title 76 and it's DEQ.
okay,
We don't have to like that. The rest of this then just gets to be added verbiage.
yeah.
I don't really care if we, say, I was looking at simple ones, that everybody read it real quick. Let's see.
So I guess I'm asking what are you saying to keep or get rid of, or,
Well, I'm saying let's get rid of as much as we can that's not physically required by law. I see 5JA being required by law. And in reality, the first two and B could be covered with that. As far as I'm concerned, I go back and I was just reading through and finding things that caught my eye.
okay?
I could see where B could be deleted in its entirety.
I agree.
Anybody have any other thoughts on it? That's just part of the wordiness that we were talking about before. I think C, because of the stormwater easements, might have some value, but it still comes down to A, the general, and,
Can we change it to may?
well, do we want to change it to may, or do we want to just delete B altogether? Just for-
I'd say delete it altogether, but
I'm with you, delete it all together. I don't think, what holds the engineer to his standards? Does he have to abide by the state standards?
Yes, he does. And if there's any
For-
liability, any problems come up, he's the one liable for it.
So, yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
delete that whole thing then.
Yeah. We could debate the other ones, you know, any input is good, but I'm just trying to get through it. I don't have anything wrong with C. Does anybody else have it in there?
I think we should get rid of C. I think we said to get rid of, oh, C, I'm sorry, it was B,
Yeah, C, small I,
got it.
drainage easements. It's kind of general.
I don't see a
What
problem.
does MCA say about drawing the drainage easements on the plat? That's one of the things they're talking about here. Is that part of,
Well, normally when you do the plat, yeah, you need to show all the easements, and if there's a drainage easement that deals with the DEQ stormwater, then DEQ definitely requires the easement to be on the plat.
yeah. I just didn't see anything in the stormwater easement part that was out of the ordinary to me.
It says the subdivider must provide suitable drainage facilities for any surface runoff affecting the subdivision.
You know, what does it mean by that?
Means the engineer is gonna do it for DEQ, but, I mean, the idea that it has to be drawn on the plat and all, that's all part of section 76 anyway.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that usually is where you have to hold the stormwater on your property, so you may have to build a basin so that the stormwater collects in that, usually a giant mud puddle.
Yeah.
So that the stormwater will collect in it and seep in and then overflow out at a rate of pre-development.
So I love this stuff because this is the kind of stuff that when I read like somebody submits for a law, it leaves it open to somebody's interpretation, because if you're reading this, subdivider must provide suitable drainage facilities, that depends on who's telling you what a suitable drainage facility actually is for that particular property, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it could say something must require as requested or required by DEQ.
In a facility, I would think it area, not facility.
why don't we just say must meet, as opposed to provide, must meet
DEQ requirement.
DEQ provisions for drainage facilities.
I like that.
Short and sweet.
Yep.
Because again, it's like the post office, you're not gonna tell DEQ
No.
differently, or if they don't require it, then why should you have to do it? I mean,
Well, and whether they do or not, this could leave it open to somebody saying that you do have to do something that DEQ doesn't even require and doesn't,
right.
who knows?
And if DEQ doesn't require it, and it says so in these regulations, then you have to hire an engineer and put out that expense when it isn't necessary.
Right.
So stormwater drainage must meet DEQ requirements? Is that what we're gonna put?
Well, all I was trying to do was reword the paragraph just a little bit right there at the beginning.
Okay,
And my memory's so bad, I doubt if I can say it again. Subdivider must comply with DEQ requirements for suitable drainage facilities.
And it would be on the plat, Bernie,
Yeah, we have to show the
easement.
stormwater basin is what, easement is what is usually showed. And the size of it is what DEQ calculations require.
Okay.
So it just depends on how much impenetrable surface you have, like how much pavement you have, would dictate how, if your basin was bigger or smaller.
I have a question. When we give this to the person we're supposed to be giving it to, I can't remember his name.
Jerry,
How is he gonna know what,
I don't know, you can ask her first and contact.
Well,
with
we've
Jerry.
I've talked to him a little bit about it. Hopefully Nicole has some written notes. Helen says she has notes. I've got several pages of notes. If need be, I'll just give him my book.
well, that's what I was wondering, is how is he gonna know what we want if,
Your book's looking like my book. And so how's-
I try to keep the swear words out of it so I
Right.
can give him the book. Anything else on that one, or can we move on to water supply?
I think we got it covered.
Okay. First thing I had there, I talked to Jerry about this. He thinks it's coming, but it's kind of like what Trinity was talking about. I see it in A, small 1I, whatever you want to call it, where it says the subdivider shall present evidence. We don't require that now. You have well logs, but that's, if you took that to the extreme, that could be require the subdivider to drill a well to show that there is or isn't water there. And the county has already protected itself in its boilerplate covenants that it's no guarantee.
Right, earthquake and.
So
no
until
water.
it becomes MCA required, I see that one going away. I know that Nicole had a lot of heartburn with it. She says, I'm not gonna tell a developer, the subdivider, that he's gotta drill a well. And I don't blame her.
Yeah.
Well, other than that, the rest of it is fairly benign and just kind of a wordy version of, yeah, you're gonna meet DEQ. Anybody else see any other changes?
So we're just gonna, in general, out.
Not the in general, we're taking out VKA small I, that first paragraph under
Okay.
general. And then it would just get renumbered from there on down. Any other changes, thoughts? Okay, if we move over to page 80. And I had the same kind of a problem with small a there, under Roman numeral 5L wastewater.
What about the type of system at the top, B? What is that all about?
I saw DEQ in it, and quite frankly, I skimmed that one, Mary. I didn't really. I think, correct me if I'm wrong there, Bernadette, but that's pretty much law right now. That's saying you can have two people on a well. This says more than two, as if you had a public water system. Then it has to be designed to DEQ standards by a PE. Is that right?
Well, yeah, DEQ only allows two people to share a well. If
Right.
it goes to
Okay.
three, then it has to be treated as a public well.
Yeah. And
So
that's
that's-
kind of, it's a wordy way of saying, to me, that's what I read into it. I don't know that that's what their intent was, but that's the way I read it, was that it was nothing more than saying anything more than two
Yeah.
connections, and that's already law.
That's what
Yeah.
it looks like.
DEQ.
So,
You get into a public water system, you put more than two people on a well.
right.
Okay.
But does it have to be in here? I mean, I'm just asking, just a simple question. And the reason I'm asking is just to know, if it's already a law somewhere, how does it help to put in here? Is there help?
It would only matter for parcels probably over 20 acres, but then that would be a local issue with the sanitarian, the local sanitarian. You know, I think if it was over 20 acres, they don't have to go to DEQ, but they do have to go through the sanitation department. So I'm sure the sanitarian would, you know, say 3 or more, you can't do it, or they'd be in non-compliance. Isn't that correct? And then they would have to deal with it. So the only time I would think it would matter would be over 20s where it doesn't go to DEQ.
And then this would catch it?
Well, I wish Nicole was here to say yea or nay on that in terms. to me, the only value in leaving it in there is if you get a ma and pa subdivider that comes in that wants to do something, to split something off, you give them the whole book,
I see,
and there's something there.
right.
That's exactly what I was gonna say, is that if it references someplace else, like somebody like me, if I wanna do a subdivision, that book, the whole purpose of that book is to give you a heads up, what do you have to do? If it says nothing more than DEQ, at least you know, okay, I gotta go someplace else for this or that. So there should be a catch-all phrase for all that stuff that is already pre-law, pre-existing law, DEQ regs, so that that'll be the first book that we look at, and then we'll see a headline there, okay, we gotta go someplace else and research that. If it's not in there at all, if it's just striped, and we use that book as our guideline, then we're gonna get tripped up. You know, like you said, if I'm a mom and pop, I'm gonna get tripped up. a month
Or
two into my
somebody that
project.
comes from a purely urban setting, and they come out and they, got more money than sense, they go
Right.
buy 2,000 acres and they decide they're gonna subdivide it, they don't have a clue. To them, development is knocking down walls in a building and building fancier
Yeah.
offices.
Yeah,
And if they come get this book, and this is my guidelines, and it's completely striped, I'm not even gonna know. I mean, it should be at least a
At
holding
least
place
it's
in
a
there.
heads up.
Says
To me, it's less about trying to be defensible. I agree it's wordy. I don't know that it's needed other than in that particular instance, and we're trying to come up with something that will fit all possible scenarios, which is pretty damn tough to do. So what's your pleasure?
I say leave it. I'm good with it.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
good with having it in there. I
Okay.
just learning, so. You know,
No, that's not a problem.
if I was to write something like this, I would put, the top paragraph and then refer to DEQ, blah, blah, blah. You know?
Well, if you let Jenny and I write it, that book would be about a quarter of what it is.
Exactly. Oh,
That-
you
we-
needed
that's
more than
not
3
the way it
pages?
goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't probably be a bad idea to put something like refer to DEQ or the local sanitarian.
Yeah. Moving on, 5L. I had the same kind of heartburn with A. The subdivider shall present evidence meeting the requirements of the local reviewing authority and DEQ for the wastewater treatment at the time of preliminary plat. As long as it's been submitted to DEQ, it's like they want, what I read into that, they want everything for final at preliminary.
That's sure what it sounds like.
Yeah, and I know the way we do it now is we have the preliminary work done, but we do not have it submitted to DEQ, because if the planning board decides on any changes, then the whole application to DEQ and all new fees have to be paid. So the way it is right now, I submit all the preliminary work with, as the layout is now, this is what we've got done. But it's not submitted until preliminary approval, because like I said, if there's any changes, then you basically gotta start over with DEQ.
Yeah, no, it just makes sense to me, just completely wipe it out, because there's
I'm with
nothing
you.
wrong with the way we're doing it now. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right, and I think it's a really good plan to have all the preliminary at preliminary. Because you don't wanna pay for the engineering to be finalized and the DEQ to be finalized. And then the planning board says, well, we don't like this curve. If you could straighten this out and go around there, well, there just want all your engineering fees plus your DEQ fees, because that would have changed a lot. Maybe it's acreage.
That's what it was 20 years ago when we required the roads
Right.
at preliminary. It just escapes me why.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me at all to have that,
But
to make,
I didn't see anything in the rest of it unless somebody else did, but if we can
I
just.
did not.
Hmm?
I did not
Oh,
see
okay.
anything.
So are we in agreement that we can scratch
Yes,
small a, VLA on page 80.
I'm in agreement.
I'm in agreement too.
Agreed.
Okay. Page 81, VM, solid waste. I've got the same thing on that. I'd delete the whole thing, A and B.
Yeah, we handle it very well now. Doesn't Nicole, if there's no place to they don't come and get your trash, you have
Yeah.
to take it to.
This is more like saying the subdivider's gonna provide collection and move it and everything else. Doesn't make any sense. Why have it in there?
I agree.
Ain't gonna happen.
I agree.
Okay? We are moving along.
Okay, and I got down into utilities.
I have one, E.
Yeah, I got a note to myself in B and I can't even read it. So you do yours while I figure out what I was trying to write.
I have just, what is this? When a utility is located in an existing dedicated right-of-way or roadway easement, a notice of utility occupancy must be obtained from the governing body, local or state highway department. What is that?
Yeah. That's what I wrote, was the last sentence is impractical. That's the way they do it in big cities with lots of requirements, but it ain't gonna happen, so why in the hell have a requirement for it? Even the power company isn't going to. Telephone company used to be the worst. If they had their services, then they'd come in and dig it up and put in the service whenever they dang well pleased. So, what's your pleasure?
Take it out?
Works for me.
We're taking out E.
81 VNB.
So B is gone too.
I'm sorry?
V and E is going, correct?
VNB as in boy, the second paragraph, under utilities.
I think we were talking about E.
We were, it was E you
E.
were working on.
Yeah.
Did anybody have anything before E? I had a question mark as to whether or not it was required by MCA on E.
Yeah.
Remove that one, sure.
That's not something we've ever done. That's the reason River Road is so rough, is because the fiber went up through there without permit, without inspection. Because there was no inspection.
Mhm.
And unless anybody knows that we could ask it, just say delete unless required by MCA, but I can't believe that it's required. It never has been unless it comes out of this legislature.
Right, no, I don't know of any to show proof of utilities in a right-of-way or anything. On the preliminary plat, it's required to show any existing easements or utilities that you see, but
So
I'm sorry, I
I
can't-
vote for we take out E.
we have to show, existing utilities on the preliminary plat
Right.
that you see, but whether there's another utility easement, a lot of times even the utility easements are blanket easements.
Well,
That
the
say
way
they're
this
just
thing's
gonna-
worded, it says a notice of utility occupancy must be obtained from the governing body.
Or a highway patrol or something else.
If you ask the commissioners, is there a telephone line in River Road, they go,
No, they're not
What?
gonna,
have a clue.
no.
Yeah,
No, that's not
I agree. Let's
yeah.
take that out if we
I
can.
would-
I've
That
had
out
the,
too.
the little guys with the locators. I knew more about where the stuff was than they did. And I'd go out with my witching sticks and show them where it was, and then they'd correct their drawings. Because they had, well, one guy had, I think he had telephone service coming all the way up River Road. The last phone line, last landline ends at Jerry Schrock's, 1049. There's nothing
that-
beyond that.
South side of you?
Way south of me,
Yeah, that's where it is.
clear down next to Dennis.
Yeah.
The house with the red roof, Jack's
Yeah,
little house down
Yeah.
there. That's the last phone line. Mine used to come across the river, across Bill's property, and the beavers had dropped trees on the poles and the guys, and right now it's nothing more than a copper line.
thank goodness for cell phones, huh?
So just so I understand right, in utilities, we're getting rid of B as in boy and E as in elephant. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything on 81? '82. All I had on the first one was to reword. As in a small I. They talk too much about the ditches. And again, it kind of, we need something, a statement, and I think, okay, yeah. I put one down at the beginning of C or at the end of small I. The state law says that you can abandon a water right, but the ditch easement is never abandoned until there is a formal abandonment proceeding. My old water right before the dam is the ditch that runs past the bunkhouse across Mark and Julie's Aperians and up the river. Until there's a formal abandonment proceeding, that's still an irrigation easement, even though the water can't be delivered through there anymore. Some
Right.
places it could, but it'd run back in the river. But I think as long as we call the fact that that's what law is, the bigger problem I have is when, with small lots, when somebody comes in, and I've built on lots where I had to move houses both to the far property line setbacks to be able to meet an irrigation easement in between, even though the pipe wasn't being used. But until you go through the abandonment proceedings, if those are the only two lots you have control over, that's really all you can do.
It's the same with roads. Until a road's abandoned, actually physically abandoned, it stays a road, even if they close it.
You have to go through an abandonment proceeding with public hearings and
Right.
so on and so forth, so it's a legal process and recorded that this easement is abandoned. Otherwise, it's an easement forever.
So what are you suggesting for small letter I?
I don't have a suggestion. I
Oh.
just know that it needs to be reworded. I wasn't trying,
Well, you always have a
I do too
suggestion.
much talking as it is. I try not to be. Saying what it should be, I just say what things I've got a problem with.
If you were subdividing a piece of property and you had water rights on that property, I would think like you would put the easements on and design the subdivision to make sure those you have a building space not next to those easements, if I'm understanding this correct. Like double I.
To me, this is so confusing as far as what you're supposed to do with water right easements and stuff. I think that could probably be done much better, wouldn't you?
Yeah, maybe we just hand it to Jerry and say rewrite,
Rewrite.
simplify.
Because all it needs to say is the acreage the subdivision needs to take into account all water right easements or ditch easements
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that they comply, that you still have the room for the lot size with all regulations or something like that, not whatever they're saying here. I don't know.
Yeah.
1 and 2, really, you sort of say it, because you do need to have the center line of the ditch. You need to have the construction, repair, maintenance, and inspection of the ditch. That has to go along with it no matter what, how long down the road. If they go to maintain that ditch, they have to have the easement to maintain it and all. So that has to be there. That was in 2.
But the problem is this is so wordy and so
It's
worded
not worded.
that
Right.
the common person can't understand.
Yeah.
Right,
They'll never even know what that says.
right.
Well, how
And I
how
don't-
about if we just tell Jerry that he has to rewrite all of VO, A and B in English?
Right. That would
In
be good.
understandable English,
Yeah,
yes.
so somebody knows what in the world that says.
I like that. Put it on Jerry.
There you go.
So we have A and B rewritten.
And C, right? Oh, hold on.
Yes, because it's as complicated as the others.
Yeah, I'd say the whole thing.
All page
Good.
82.
Just say A through C.
Rewrite and simplify.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these were written with the help of a lawyer, weren't they?
Yeah, oh.
You can tell. You can
What it
tell.
reminds me of is that list of model regs we got about 12 or 15 years ago from they weren't even attorneys yet. They were third-year law students.
Oh, that's worse.
And there wasn't anything in there that was enforceable.
And
No.
we adopted them,
Really?
really.
Oh, boy.
Oh my goodness.
I know, we were really dumb. Naive, let's put it
Yep.
that way. But it didn't take long for them to be changed.
That's good.
Okay. Anybody see anything under VP, disposition of water rights?
I know nothing about water rights, so you'd have to educate me.
It's fairly straightforward. I didn't have anything marked up. I started on the next one and then I got lines all over the place. So are we good to leave VP? Essentially, what I had on the next one, if there's no other changes there, was to replace it with page 35 out of our specs, which I thought read a whole lot better than
We're talking about VP or VQ?
VQ now.
Are everybody okay with VP?
I didn't hear anything, so I was just moving on, that's all.
Since I don't know anything about it, I just have to, and I didn't read about water rights.
And remembering that hopefully our second or third run through these will be easier because they'll be in plainer English and less stuff to read. This isn't the last time we're gonna have a chance to say no.
Got it. Okay.
So what page of our standards?
Which page of your standards over here?
I had page 35.
Okay.
road, but that doesn't look like it's the right
You guys have fun, we gotta run.
Thanks.
floodplain.
Thank you.
I must have wrote the wrong page number. I just thought ours were a whole lot more simple and it got rid of a bunch of that stuff. Where's the parkland at, Bernadette? You ought to know this stuff by heart.
Oh, she left, yeah.
She knew I was gonna call her.
Yep.
So she- Why did I write?
What, would they be under general provisions, or what would they be under?
It should be under parkland dedication.
Don't see that.
I don't see it either, but that's what it should be, there should be payback, grant. road
Well,
work.
that's what they called it, let's put it.
Don't
let's
see
see.
a park.
This is crazy. Right to the tree.
Wow. So it appears that they want the governing body to be involved in every choosing of the,
Mm-hmm.
where the park goes and,
Well, and I'm trying to think. What have we had, Jenny? Maybe 2 parcels in all of our time where we've actually had parkland
And they're all been
dedicated?
south of the county, down there.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Been down south of the county, parkland right there, as you turn into Rolling Glen was one of them.
One of them was there, and it seems to me like there's one out somewhere out to the northeast. But there's
Page-
not much.
Page 30,
well,
is
this,
that what you're talking about? Number 16?
well, this
of
new
ours.
one would include would have parkland in every single subdivision.
Oh, there you go. I had it marked. Right there.
Yeah?
Oh, I've been reading too much, okay?
Well, that's the reason I didn't want to wait until Nicole got back, because in my memory, I have to reread everything. I can't remember it for 2
Yeah,
weeks.
exactly.
What it was the problem that I had, and I don't want to write a book in the margin.
So,
Yeah, 30 is the right page. But just see what everybody thinks. That was just my thought on it, was that we were a whole heck of a lot more simple.
Let's see, they have 11, 7.5.
And effectively, that would take care of a page and a half. That'd go all the way to BR.
Yes.
Theirs is sort of like ours.
Ours is shorter, easier to understand. I just don't understand, other than the fact that they had attorneys write it, why they have so much gobbledygook.
They get paid by the word?
I
Letter?
think so.
why do they require parks? Sorry.
That's borrowed, some of it I think comes from MCA. And the whole thing is, in my mind anyway, designed around quarter acre or smaller lots as opposed to 5 to 20 acre parcels.
Right, trying to create space for the people to, or.
So everybody doesn't have to have a swing set in their backyard. You got one lot out of 40 that is quote unquote parkland.
But
The
right
problem-
now, I mean, you about can't have anything under 2 acres, right? Because you got to fit the mixing zone onto the
Correct.
acreage and everything.
Mhm.
I think you do
2
one,
acres
but
is
you're
about as small as
pushing it.
you can get
Well,
anymore,
like I say,
without a
the-
water system. Or sewer system.
this is strictly my opinion, but I think that's where the parkland comes from, is from MCA, because of the
I-
idea that
I
they're
think so,
writing
too.
it for
Yeah.
Kalispell or
Right,
Great Falls or something of that nature, as opposed to Broadwater County.
Who maintains
We can't
this
even
park?
get the parks that we have, that the county owns, that somebody dedicated
Right.
mowed.
Exactly.
Let alone have
oh, we want
anything in.
more, yeah.
It's just that much more expense.
Yep.
I see no reason to add all of this.
Personally, I say make it all the responsibility of the person that's
So-
buying the lot, so that somebody else maintains it.
So there's a cash donation. What happens to the cash if they cash donation?
Do you know? I don't know. The same as I was reading in here about roads, where they put, if you put the money in to have a road upgraded, where does it go?
That's a good question. I thought the road fund went into a special, from what not Bernadette,
Nicole?
Nicole was saying, it went into a fund.
Supposed to. But it
Yeah.
doesn't always, yeah.
I would
And
hope it
how long
would.
does it sit there? You
It
know?
sits in escrow until they need to use it for that road, I
Right.
guess.
It could
Well,
be
which
20,
state law
30
says
years.
if it's not used, there's a couple of things there with state law. First of all, it has to have a separate cost account. Like
Okay.
your subdivision road, River Road, something in the south end of the county, whatever that money goes into, it's supposed to go into the road fund, but it has to be a designated, so it has a line item
Cost of
for
it.
that. And to
That
answer the
road.
question about how long, MCA says 20 years.
So what happens with the money after 20 years?
If they don't use it, it should come back to the subdivider.
That would be a nice thing to find out. We just assume that it could be the county assumes it.
Most all of this stuff under MCA, when it says it has to go in, there's a sunset clause on it.
What happens, what's sad is if you put money in to have a road upgraded and it never gets upgraded.
I know, it makes people angry.
Yes, it should be, have to be used some way, shape, or form.
Unfortunately, we'd have to run for office to be able to do anything about that, and I don't want the headaches. I ain't going to.
Yeah, no thanks.
Carroll Drive is my favorite one. I'm still waiting for a 44-unit high-rise apartment building to go in there so we can get 100% of upgrading Carroll Drive, which is less than a mile long.
Yeah.
That was where the gunshot first came from at the,
Right, the very, very first, the 5150th, that's the road that they came up with this formula.
Mm.
It's where that Silver Springs nursing home is,
Okay?
behind the hardware store,
Mhm.
that road right there. I don't know.
there
whoever
was
see
a
it.
one-lot minor on it probably, 12, 15 years ago.
Yeah,
And that was what the Mako attorney at the time came up with, was that hip shot of, okay, you divided out 8 vehicle trips per day, 400 vehicle trips on a class 1 road, therefore it's 5%, and that's all they had to pay. That's all the people, when they subdivided Silver Springs, had to pay. Now, do you suppose Silver Springs has more than, pre-COVID or post-COVID, has more than 8 vehicle trips per day?
Well, did they use any of that money to update that road? Has that road been updated? The one,
Not that I know of.
Only by BSE, that Loki Lane got done, but I don't know if they did, BSE may have graded Carroll, but I don't know that they actually
and got paid
put
by the
anything. It's
county?
no smoother now than what it was 12
No.
years ago, put it that way.
Somebody else paid BSC to do it? Oh. Well, there should be some accountability on this.
Exactly, on all of this.
Well, as far as this is concerned, I personally, I think you can either delete it or, in my opinion, you guys can decide whatever. I think all the park stuff should be deleted unless the county wants to figure out how to, because what this does, according to this thing, I don't know exactly how that says, is you either had to donate this percentage of the land to the county, so they have to maintain a bunch of stuff, or cash in lieu of, well, I can about guarantee they're gonna dedicate you all this land that then the county has to take care of, so. I mean, that's the way I see it.
That's the Parks and Rec Board, that's where they get a little bit to do whatever they do.
Yeah. So, I mean,
My only thought,
Why
I'd
don't we
say,
just
I
say
don't know
cash
what's
then?
required by MCA, but I like ours a hell of a lot better than I like theirs.
okay,
So we want Jerry to use ours, page 30.
Yeah,
Versus
just 30 and 31 in
Right.
lieu of,
and do
Page
we,
4.
does ours say that, like the size of the lot, if it's under a certain size of lot, or can we just, because I see your percentages here,
yeah, there's a percentage on it based on
the size of the
when it
acreage.
goes into the small ones, but that's the old CTA about if somebody wanted to go in there and put 100 lots on 20 acres.
Mhm.
If they were doing something else with sanitation and so on and so forth.
Can't we just adopt when the lots are really small, rather than this 5 acre and,
Well, this says 11% of the area of the land proposed to subdivide if it's a half acre or smaller, and 7.5 if it's not larger than 1 acre, 5% if it's not larger than 3 acres.
Yeah.
1 to 3?
I really don't think those are our numbers. I think that comes out of MCA.
So what you're
I
saying
see.
is we have to follow it?
So we may
I'm
have
sorry?
to do that?
What you're saying is we have to follow that because it's MCA?
Let's just say we have to rewrite it and we'll do some checking in the meantime.
Okay.
Have Jerry check on that for us, if that's a mistake.
Well, let's have him rewrite it with ours, and then we have the opportunity to check it between now and the time that, we're probably gonna be doing this a year from now. Still.
So parkland dedication, we're gonna rewrite with Broadwater counties.
Yeah, page
Right.
30 and 31, we're gonna replace VQ in its entirety, which is 83, 84, and part of 85.
VQ entirety, right?
VQ entirely is rewrite it and use 30 and 31.
Right.
Okay, are we ready to move on to VS?
VR, right?
VR?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, VR. Anybody got anything in there?
I have to admit, I did not read it because everybody here, Herb would tell you what we went through with fire protection. We used to regulate fire protection, the planning board
Mm-hmm.
did. And it got to the point we were really having a hard time working together with the fire department, which I understand. It's their department, they know what they're doing, where we don't. And we finally, how many years ago, Herb, got Nicole and Ron Elliott together, went to a meeting with just a few of them and a few of us, and worked it out.
Yep.
And
I
got
think
it squared
it
away.
took 2 meetings, and we had wasted probably a week's worth of time aggregately over the previous 8 or 10 years discussing fire. It got to the point that I refused to discuss fire. I was telling us, you're gonna discuss fire, I'm leaving.
Forget it.
Because
think that would
if
be
you
gross.
mentioned it doesn't make any difference how
That's
much,
next.
and I'm
I
not
know.
saying that any one person's was wrong, but it was always good for an hour and nothing ever came of it.
And we went to all of the fire department's meetings. I mean, we were going to meetings constantly. And with the commissioners, mainly with the fire department. And we just sent 2 people and
Yeah,
That's
that's
good.
probably Nicole's greatest accomplishment since she's been
her and
in
Ron
the
Elliott.
planning office.
Right.
So right now, they pay $1,000 fire fee for every lot they create. Where does that money go?
Goes to the fire department.
It goes to the fire department. But now they, instead of the $1,000, they can put in a fire suspension system, like a pond, a giant pond that the fire department can get the water from. Or they can put in tanks. And that, there for a while was what most people were doing, where they put in this huge tank at their subdivision that was for water. And that's how it basically.
How did it
ended.
get
Is there
built?
water in that tank in front of your folks' house?
The homeowners association,
Up
the
there.
owner of
I'm
the
just thinking,
subdivision
I
had
don't,
to maintain
I don't know if there ever was water in that thing.
tank.
One time, I think
And
they
the
The
actually
owners
put
of
water.
They might
the
have.
people who bought the lots.
that-
I know the
then-
tanks are in there.
Yeah,
So we
oh,
had
I know
one
too.
tank.
For years, they didn't
Subdivision,
have
they had
power.
one big tank.
No, I just sat
And
there.
I
everybody-
don't pump it, but that,
The owner of the subdivision had to make sure that tank was maintained all the time and full water. And that got to be a big thing. We had a big meeting up yonder when Lewis and Clark came in, wasn't it? Because they decided they weren't doing that anymore because they'd go to a fire and there wouldn't be any water in the tank.
Right.
And so they came up with other regs, which we worked on with.
we're doing it again, Jenny. We're talking about fire and we're burning
I know
daylight.
it.
Let me make a quick proposition. I'm not trying to
No,
tell
he's
you not
right.
to talk. But you see what I mean? Everybody has a good idea, and there's nothing wrong with any of the ideas, but nothing ever comes of it.
Or it doesn't.
What I would propose is that on this fire protection, it's exactly the same thing as what we did before, because that is something that locally the fire departments are working with, and we have 2 fire districts here because we deal with Three Forks. Everything south of 101 Road
Right,
is in Three Forks District.
right.
That's the emergency services break point. It's also the school break point in theory.
Right,
They all south of that, they go to Three Forks.
okay.
But I would suggest that we replace, see, ours is less than a page, well, I guess it's longer than that.
I'm trying
We
to
don't
find
have
ours.
Oh, page 33.
Thank you.
And it has seemed to be working
Yes,
so far.
I think so, and that's the reason, I think, basically, from there back, all of this stuff about buffers and all that other stuff, I mean, from there to whatever the next one was,
The fuel breaks forward. And the thing is, who's going to enforce them?
mhm.
That's the other part.
Exactly. Who wants to enforce them?
No, that's right, because you could be liable.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Well, you're liable. None of the sheriffs over the last 20 years have had adequate forces to even think about trying to enforce them.
Doing what they're doing already, so.
They
it's-
wanted to put a speed limit on River Road. I
Yeah.
called Brenda up, and she says, what do you want? She says, I don't give a shit what you put on there, I ain't gonna enforce it.
That's right.
I'm good with that.
I'm not gonna patrol that again. Yeah.
Well, for years, they didn't, River Road didn't used to get patrolled until I had a deputy rent a little house at the south end, and then they, because they were paying flat tire repairs so much, they
Oh, yeah.
started grading the road a little better.
Yeah, I'll bet.
But does anybody have any other thoughts? Just say that
Replace,
VR fire protection is replaced by existing Broadwater County standards.
page
Exactly.
32, 33.
Good enough.
On page 33.
And VS as well?
Yes. Because the other thing you've got here that we've been through, to give you a little bit of history. Unfortunately, Bill left because Bill Will, the one who was sitting in the audience, if he ever catches up to Nicole, we'll actually have another member. He has enough interest in it. He's done some building. He moved here from Central California about 10 years ago. He's a neighbor of mine across the river. But for you two in particular, with this deal with the fire, and your question, Mary, about the wildland fire, for 2 years, we had a consultant coming in here, and all they were doing was churning the pot. They were suggesting things that Lewis and Clark County lost on in court, and they were telling us these are the fire standards. And okay, I'm not saying it's not appropriate. They wanted sprinklers in every house, in every new house in Broadwater County.
Yes, they did,
Oh, my goodness.
because they require it in Bozeman. So they were saying you should require it here too, and they give you the, if you want, I have, well, you might not have a VHS anymore. I have all
I
the
don't.
VHSs that they gave us, to look at time-wise and what it would do and all, but, I might not.
Well, the point of, that's the part about fire is that, you can literally discuss it forever, but the short version of it is, what's in here is illegal.
Okay,
Lewis and Clark's already found that out. Broadwater backed off of it. The state essentially backed off of the wild land. I mean, you can advise people of it, but you can't put it in your
You can't
standards
force it.
and treat it different for a subdivision that's 4 miles up Ray Creek or 6 miles up Ray Creek as opposed to yours out here on the flat.
Yep.
That won't fly.
Okay.
So you can put it into advisement, but that's where I think ours just replace everything through, well, yeah, all the way through to VT, which is noxious weeds,
Yeah.
and we've already got our own weed stuff.
Yep.
that weed stuff has changed now. There's fees associated with per lot and all that. I don't know if you want to include that in here, so they know.
The which?
There is new,
There's new fees for the weed. And I don't know if you want to include that in here so they know
No,
all the
I don't
fees.
think so, because we went through a big deal. They had to have public hearings so that the weed board had their own control.
Okay,
I think a statement that they have to go to the weed board, there has to be a plan in effect. Noxious weeds should be handled by the weed board and the weed experts, and that's all a subdivider really needs to know.
okay.
and they go to them, and then it's put in the preliminary, what their plan is. Moving along.
For the time being, what I would propose, I'm not saying that there's some good ideas, but I see it being a waste of time to try to discuss it now. As short as it is VU, the well pad and facilities, all the way through the landscape buffer. I'd say we just delete it for the time being.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And we can come back to it and we can discuss, we can pick and choose things that we see that might help, in case of, not mandatory, but I'm a big proponent of trying to be proactive, because this kind of stuff someday is coming to Broadwater County.
Right.
Whether it's oil, coal, natural gas, something that nobody's discovered lately, man camps for wind farms and everything. Everybody's heard me talk to Jerry about that. I don't want to eliminate it. I want to protect the land and the county, and it should be a business decision. If somebody wants to come in and build a man camp, somebody up there can hand, sanitation or whatever, hands them a set of standards. This is what you'll build. Go post a bond for 125, get a bid for it, post a bond for 125% of the cost and go to work. As opposed to trying to go through all of the steps and jumps and county employees being on vacation so they're not there to answer the phone and so on and so forth. Don't stand in the way of business. You make things a business decision, because if somebody thinks they can make money at it, they don't have a problem. And a good example of this kind of thing goes to similar areas. You go out by Baker, where there's a lot of problems out there with the conservation districts. There's actually 2 or 3 counties where individual landowners have banded together and they pay. It's like having an attorney on retainer. There's a land use, an oil and land use attorney that's out of Wyoming, and these people join the association. And if somebody wants to come drill on your property, because most, and particularly in the eastern part of the state, but most of the property, as old as Montana is, there's very few parcels that have 100% mineral rights.
Right.
Somebody has
Somebody
retained it
retained
or
part of
sold
it.
it or whatever, so you don't have any say in it. But they have gotten to the point, because they were walking over landowners and this and that, doing it, and they were raping the environment in the process. Not only does it help the landowners because they get fairly compensated, the pads are built properly, they're fenced properly, etc. Even the oil companies and the drillers like it because it's constant. They deal with one attorney out of Wyoming. He comes in, hands them a set of specs. Okay, guys, you can go to work drilling. As soon as you post this bond or you do this work, your choice. And usually time is money, so you go to the bonding company and you pay your 1% and you get a bond and you go to work.
Mhm.
But at least the county and or the landowner is covered. Jerry Gerbens tells me that that's technically illegal. There's some big fancy term for it. I don't know. Do you remember, Helen, when he was talking? We had him up on the screen there one day.
Yeah, no, I
But that-
don't remember, but I do, this makes positive sense whether it's illegal or not. I mean, it's consistent and everybody knows what they're to do.
Yeah. I just don't see it being germane to the issue of trying to get Jerry something to work with. That's my problem. I'm saying that in my mind, we ought to come back to it, discuss it at future meetings while Jerry's working on it, and pick and choose what we want ours to say. I think there's good information there. I just don't think that I have, let's see. I guess I don't see any shalls right off the bat, but anyway, the idea is good. It's just there needs to be something along the lines of if needed, when needed, et cetera, et cetera. It's not like the big strong arm of Broadwater County, because we're not going to enforce it anyway. So let's put something in there that works for the county, is defensible, and maybe we can get future businesses to buy into.
So your suggestion is to table the VU?
Yeah, I would say VU should come out, VU and perhaps even VV.
I don't like VV.
Well, we can discuss, just take them out now for the first go through,
Okay,
and then that lets us go on to the others, and I think the stuff will move pretty fast after we get through that.
so take out VU and VV.
Mm-hmm.
And VV also,
Yes,
Okay.
You can call them table or revisit or,
and revisit the well and facility pads after the first draft from Jerry.
right.
Okay.
because the the likelihood is that, Nicole was right, I don't remember, and forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but she did talk about a sunset on the money for the grant.
Yes, you did.
Okay, I talked to Jerry about that, yes, and I talked to commissioners about it, yes, there is a sunset, but they've already applied through the Department of Commerce for an extension on that same grant based on the fact that it's supposed to sunset before the legislature adjourns. They know that there's more coming out of the legislature. Why hurry up and try to get something and then have to start all over again?
Yeah.
Typical government.
Yep.
So hopefully there's a little common sense somewhere where the grant will be extended so that, you know, I'd rather.
I'm with you, but.
You know, I don't want it to take a year, but I'd rather be working on it a year from now rather than force something through
Yeah,
before the 1st of April and get it wrong.
and then have to redo it.
We're gonna have to redo it anyway.
You'd have to be living with it for a few years.
You're gonna live with it for a year or two while you redo
Right.
it.
Before we could do anything, and you
Yep.
don't know the consequences to a rancher who needs to split something, you know.
Mhm.
He's the one that suffers for it, we don't. Okay, where are we moving to, or,
VI, is that
Well, Roman numeral 6,
correct?
okay.
I've got mixed emotions about that. We have similar stuff.
This has been Herb's pet peeve,
What?
The multifamily?
and mobile homes, and mobiles, for like, over at the Balkans.
Yeah. But the problem is they still, in my mind, they still have to go through the county to get there.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to avoid, is trying to get standards. But Jerry says it can't legally be done, that it takes legislative work to get there, to where we could have standards in advance. Okay, you want to come in and build a 100-man camp or a 300-man camp or whatever, you can do that. Post the bond and start bringing your stuff in tomorrow. Because the reality of it is that the people that are doing the work, it will cost them more money sitting on their hands trying to get, you look at what's going on with, I don't know, man, I think it's still Rio Tinto, the mine up at White Sulphur, how many years they've been working on that, and
Yeah.
going through the permit process and so on and so forth. Half of the cost of getting something done anymore is getting through the government red tape. Why not simplify it? Okay, we know what we want. Protect the environment, make sure you're taking care of sewage, you've done, you know, you're testing the water, you comply with the law, and go get started.
Well, and it really,
Just put a big pile of money right there, because they want it back. And if you don't do it right, we get to keep taking out of the pile of money until we think we're done.
yeah.
If you do it right, you get all of it back.
It really comes down to, you know, how business friendly do you want to be? You know, if you want to be business friendly, then you make it easy up front to get started, so you can.
I don't even know that that's being business friendly, that's just being business wise as far as I'm concerned.
Well, unless you don't want business in your county
You
at
know,
all, then
we're
you
not,
be.
yeah, but sooner or later, you're gonna wind up
Yes.
facing a
No, I'm with
lawsuit
you.
over what you want. It's not about, I'm not here because I like subdivisions.
No.
I'm here to try to
exactly.
keep my taxes down for as long as I possibly can,
Yeah.
you know? So it's just trying to protect the county from themselves and comply with the law, and that's about the only way we can describe our job. Because we don't get to make the rules, we just advise the commissioners, and then they go do whatever they dang well please anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yep, sounds about right.
I voted no on 2 subdivisions and only once, and it wasn't because of me, it was because it attracted enough attention that they did more research and found out things that they didn't like.
Yeah.
But legally, we couldn't deny the subdivision. They were applying for a variance for access because they didn't have proper right-of-way for the access.
Oh.
And I just told them, I said, no. And I said, it's not about whether I like it or anything else, but you're setting an extremely dangerous precedent.
Oh, yeah.
I knew it was
Yeah.
gonna go through. But they actually, the commissioners voted it down because other facts came to light. You know, they saw a no vote, they're used to seeing 3-0, 5-0, you know, however many people were voting, and all of a sudden there's a no in there. Well, why is there a no? You know, they listened to that, but that wasn't the reason they turned the subdivision down. They turned it down for some other reasons, but at least they didn't set that precedent.
Yeah.
Because once you cross that bridge, you're in deep
Yep.
doo-doo.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you, so you're thinking this whole thing here?
Well, you guys kick it around for yourself. I'm gonna go visit the
Okay.
little boys' room for a minute. I'm open on it. There's nothing wrong with what's there. I just think it's wordy.
Well, it's all wordy. That is for sure.
I got Mark County's book on it, regs, and do you think I can find it?
Can't find it?
Do you not like our Broadwater County regs
No, I love our regs.
for the mobile home parks?
Oh, we've not had a problem, situation with it.
Well,
at
that's
all.
that's good.
That's exactly good.
Is that because nobody has proposed anything?
Nobody has really proposed anything because we don't have anything, like any oil wells or any needing the situation for a group of people to come in even for a temporary time. We haven't
Right.
had that situation
Right.
happen. So if ours are simple, stick with it and we can always change it.
Are you talking about the, just so I'm understanding,
The
The-
mobile homes and manufactured parks,
is that what you're referring to?
I'm referring to it and the little temporary ones.
Okay.
So are they two separate things, or does this section apply to all that stuff?
Let me get my book here. Do you have a Broadwater book? Oh, you don't?
I don't.
Oh.
Here, I'll send
No,
you.
that's all right. I can get one from, I'll get one from her. But
Okay.
she said she had one for me somewhere, actually, now that I think about it. She just
Nicole?
forgot to give it to, yes.
Let
She
me
forgot to
find
give it
it.
to me when I was here last time.
Okay.
Yeah, I read over the mobile home parks previously, and I mean, it's pretty,
What pages do you have it on?
I don't know where it is in here.
Oh,
Let me,
Broadwater's.
Broadwater's, let me look here and see if I
Okay,
can
I'll
find
look
it.
here.
I made note to give you a copy of that.
I'm gonna do the same. Huh?
You get everything.
Absolutely, we're done.
We're done, we're ready to go home, we're ready to have the book printed.
Outstanding. Go on to the next book.
I'm missing that.
Just so I can make a note, what did you all decide?
Well, we haven't decided anything, but we're thinking to just, for, the mobile home and parks.
What did you think, Herb, when we've looked at those? Because we've not had any come up.
Any problems come up with what you have for Broadwater County?
Not within the county. The biggest thing that came up was that one they're proposing in town. It doesn't even meet our standards. The city bought off on it. Doesn't meet our square footage, our setbacks, or anything else. Ours are reasonable. We've only done one that I can think of
I can't even think of one.
The one up off of, Harrison. Going to, out there to RY, I'm trying to
Right.
remember, White,
Oh, nothing.
do you remember? I could drive you right to it, but I can't tell you the name of it.
But I,
Just north of 4th Street.
right, correct. But, I just thought that was always, I don't remember us changing anything on it.
There
Oh,
wasn't,
yes, I do. The veterinarian owned that V part out there.
mhm.
Yes.
And what
Legend.
happened?
And the only thing, I think, all I recall was that we wanted them to fence the backside because of the kids, because that's the truck route,
Right, that's understandable.
and give reasonable access to move trailer houses in and out, because it was a little questionable with a couple of their spaces. If we changed
Gotcha.
the road around a little bit, but they're very,
Well-
very minor changes, and,
And it's full already
well, it was full
before, yeah,
6 months after it was built.
yeah.
So if it's working, why don't we just go with Broadwater County's mobile home and parks?
That's what I was hoping you'd come up with while I
That
was
sounds like
gone.
a
It makes
winner to
it
me.
a whole lot simpler.
I mean, unless we were having issues, unlike the roads and the fire.
The roads are gonna be the doozies now. We've not had a problem really with roads, Herb, until now. With the new subdivisions and all.
Well, I think it's more in terms of the legal interpretation.
Or-
If you go way back, we had trouble with roads. I'm thinking about Grandview. When you got wheatgrass growing up through the subbase because they didn't bother to clear and grub, personally, I consider that a road problem.
That's the engineer's problem, and
Well,
the
back then,
engineer
we
and
changed
the,
things a whole bunch since then.
and the contractor.
So I propose that we adopt Broadwater counties for the 6. Is that 6? For the
Mobile home thing, yeah.
multiple spaces, recreational camping vehicles, or mobile homes.
Okay, sounds good to me. You have any objection?
No, I'm gonna read through all that stuff, because that,
And likewise
That one is
with the PUD, I didn't have any problem with what's here. This one's not so wordy. I'd give Jerry his choice on that one. We had a discussion about a PUD once, but I don't know that we've had one in 20 years.
What is a PUD? Just a
Planned
plan?
unit development.
What is a planned unit development?
What it really allows for is you're more dense, but you're more open, okay? Let's say you took a 20-acre parcel and you wanted to put 5 houses on it.
Mm-hmm.
You'd put 5 houses on a loop road. And the rest of it's open space.
They've done a few of them out of Bozeman, headed towards Four Corners, the back road there. There's a couple that they did up in there, that it's, keep, like he said, you know, you put a group of houses here, and then this is all open, you can have
What is the-
horses
Oh, okay.
or whatever you want out there. But it's an open area, it doesn't look all congested with a bunch of houses. I do have some government brochures on that, on
Okay.
PUDs.
What is the purpose of that? Why would somebody do that?
Because they don't want to be living in a subdivision like spread out all
So it's
over.
Gets rid of your mini ranchettes.
It's like, yeah, it's a cluster, they
It
call them
depends.
cluster homes.
More of an upscale subdivision, if you would, upscale home, more like somebody that would live in Bozeman or the outskirts of Bozeman. They don't mind having a neighbor from here to Jess,
But they want an open
but they
area.
want an open area, and they look out their front and they look out their back, and they've got acres and acres and more acres and acres.
Here's
It
one of
also
them.
lets you develop or subdivide, bite my tongue, questionable ground and
Yes.
make better use of it. You can
Okay.
take a bluff that's way too steep to
Sure.
build
Thank you.
on, put the houses around the outside. You can also run community water and sewer more efficiently and less expensively and better use of the resources. But you could build up on the bluff becomes your open space. You look at it from a outside road, all you see is a hill there in somebody's backyard or somebody's roof or something like that, like the new guy that built above you. You know, imagine having 4 or 5 of those, but nothing else on the hill.
Right. So,
To me, that's essentially what the PUD is about.
They took a
Okay.
ranch out there, headed that way, and I forget the name of it. But you'd see the farmhouses on the road almost, and the barns across the street. There's a road goes down this way, and there's the old ranch house there. And that's what they used as a model, so to speak. They built around the ranch house and left all the rest of the land open. So they had a subdivision around the original ranch house, and it's supposed to be real smart, you know. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm not meaning that sarcastically. It was smart growth, but
You know, there's a good argument for it, but it takes the right piece of property and the right clientele.
Okay,
if you had a marshy piece like Herb said, you could build your cluster over here, and
mm-hmm,
this be for ducks and stuff.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, you could take a lot that would be 30 or 40% wetland, it would be, you know, natural marsh. You could still subdivide it, divvy it up, because that becomes your open space.
Understood.
so the benefit of somebody doing that as far as going through the subdivision process is there's a few things that you could probably waive because of the way you're doing it, or?
As long as they qualify via the state for the PUD,
Okay. Gotcha.
they can do it.
Okay.
It gives you use of, better use of questionable ground other than straight open space.
And it's easy, it's a less strict standards?
Is it the same standards as subdividing? You gotta have,
Yes.
Essentially,
yes,
yeah, your roads are the same. It just allows for community water and community sewer. There's a
Gotcha.
couple other things in there
Okay.
that
Right.
lets you,
So you could set up a community water and sewer system for
Yeah.
that?
Yes.
okay, that's, okay, now I get it.
And the roads are less of them. You know, you don't have to have a road over here, a road over there. You
Yeah.
can have them all over here.
Yeah.
It has a few benefits to it.
Okay,
I'm watching for you.
Are you?
Yeah. Thank you.
okay, so for this plan unit developments, we're just going to go with what Broadwater has, or are we going to go with what's here?
well, that's not my decision, that's our decision.
Well, I'm
and I'd
asking
say-
your
I
opinion.
would just say, I have no problem giving Jerry the lead on that one. Just say, you read them both and see what you think.
Okay,
Because there's not a whole lot of stuff in there, it's something that has to happen, that's all.
okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
And Jerry was recommending we use Richlands rather than.
Well,
Is that,
Yes.
I think, yeah, he was recommending that, but I think he understands enough now from talking to us is that we're not buying
oh,
all
no,
of
I'm
this
just
stuff.
saying if we don't care which one, if he recommended this
Yeah.
one, we could just.
I don't
keep it.
have a problem with theirs, as long as it meets
Okay.
state law, and that's the whole thing. That's all I'd say, is that it's not overly wordy, it doesn't
Okay.
Yeah.
carry
So-
things on. That's
Why
all.
don't we just keep the plan unit developments the way it
Okay,
is instead
that's fine.
of having Jerry
Okay.
make a decision, because it might be quicker?
Okay, sounds good to me.
Yep,
All right.
sounds fine to me.
probably the same thing on the condominiums. If he and the attorney are happy with that, they've got references in there to MCA,
Yes, they do. And
and it's short and relatively,
They spent all their
we've
time on
never
the
had
front.
any.
They spent all their time on the front half.
Yeah.
Once they got to here, they just said, reference MCA.
Well, that's what they should have been doing to begin with.
Darn right, they should have.
You know. So I see, depends what everybody else thinks, but I could see the same thing there with 98 and 99 is just keep section 8.
they have to be reviewed and approved. The approval procedures are that of major subdivisions?
Do you know we've not had one?
Well, it
There
might be
are
coming.
some specific
Oh,
things
yes, I'm sure there will be.
in MCA. There will be someday.
Oh, yes. At the rate land is being used up, I can understand where you would have a condominium
Well, they're also less expensive for those who can't afford a
for,
house.
right.
They provide that. So a total of more than 5 units, major subdivisions.
The biggest problem with that is when you concentrate that kind of home ownership, you almost have to have common water and sewer.
Yes.
Yeah.
The only place we have that in Broadwater County is Townsend.
Yeah. Yeah, there's too many people in one spot to do more than really a duplex.
Yeah. You know, technology has come a long way. The stuff that they have for the TED down there, I mean, it's not like the old sewage lagoons. You're looking at a bunch of smooth steel grain silos, as far as I'm concerned. You're looking at a bunch of 10,000 gallon tanks,
Oh, okay.
pressure vessels and stuff like that. It's a sealed system.
Oh,
Do you
I see.
remember when they tried to do this out by the airport? If you built a subdivision and you put in X amount of homes actually for the low-cost homes,
Mhm.
you got points. And you got to, I don't know where they were going with it, you could build an airport in the middle of your thing. You got points to do things that normally wouldn't be able to be allowed, but we voted it down.
Point system, that's
It
interesting.
and it sounded very complicated and messy, and you could get sued easier than anything if you asked me. You remember that, Herb?
I remember a little bit of the conversation. I don't remember.
It was
That
right
may have been
across
about
from
the time I
Right
came
across from
over.
the rodeo grounds, there, and they were gonna try and do it there.
Well, the one across from the rodeo grounds, that's Foster's.
You know where the old fireside used to be?
Yeah.
Somewhere in that area there.
Oh, okay. That
Up in
must have
there.
been before my time even,
Could have been.
because Georgia was still pres when I joined.
Who was?
Georgia?
Oh, okay. This, I think, was when Virgil Binkley was.
Who was?
Virgil Binkley.
Okay, no, I wasn't here when Virgil was doing it.
So we're all in agreement that the section under condominiums, we're just gonna
Yeah.
keep it as
I think we
Richlands?
can keep that, and everybody glance ahead, but
We can
section
go
9, from there all the way through the end of the book, is essentially MCA.
Oh,
I couldn't see anything else. They reference it, that's, it'd take me a while to find it, the right one. Well, there's some there, but
I have on,
that's not really something that we get into. That's what the commission does in terms of family transfers, court-ordered type
Yeah.
situation that the planning board never sees it.
I have one here though,
I
What's
think
that?
you have a couple staked out back there.
She just puts them on there to look like she's
I
got
know,
it.
make it look like I do stuff. I just sit there at night and rip them and put them on there. Okay. Advisory meeting,
What page are you on?
100.
First page.
First page of this thing.
Okay.
Okay, and I do have a few marked there. Okay, but not many. Okay, advisory meeting. Does the county want this? What about the surveyor? Doesn't he have some say in this? And the advisory meeting is intended to give the landowner feedback from the subdivision administrator or whether or not the proposed exemption is in compliance with the MSPA and the criteria of the section prior to submitting a survey and the additional document. It is requested that the landowner or their representative bring information to the meeting that will assist the subdivision administrator in providing feedback. A list of information that is recommended for this meeting can be found in the Richland County Subdivision Regulation Supplements. This meeting is advisory only. The actual determination on the exemption will be made once the application is submitted and required, I can't read my side orders message. I can't read my side messages here.
I have the
This
same
is on
problem.
film. And we meet with the Broadwater County Kings before life moves forward.
I looked at, I didn't see a whole lot more than that. What they're talking about here in the Richland County subdivision regs, that's actually our preliminary checklist. That's one of the things that Nicole likes about this second book.
I like their checklist. I
Yeah.
agree.
Well, that's essentially,
But
that's the way I took it. I'm not saying, I can't speak for what they meant by it, but that's what I took out of it when I read it, that it was, they just shifted things away. We put it at the front of our book, they put it in a separate piece of book.
And the subdivision administrator review, this needs to be changed or discussed to current commissioner's review. Now, I'd have to say, I gotta read through this again while I wrote some of this stuff here. And X'd out stuff.
Well, and again, it's not like we don't get another chance to look at it.
Right, I agree with that.
If we finish that, then essentially we can close this book, go on to just a couple of tabs. Do you have as many tabs in the supplement, Jenny?
There's a supplement?
See, I didn't get the supplement.
2,
I didn't get the supplement either.
Okay. Well,
Oh, you
we could
didn't?
talk about Nicole since she's not here to
That's right.
defend herself.
let me see.
I didn't get that.
Let me find
Kind of like one of those TED meetings that we went to where the ladies from Butte were going to shove it down our throats and they hadn't even bothered to send all the information. They kept talking about documents and I'm going through my stuff.
Where is that, huh?
I don't have that one. And they come to find out they didn't even send them.
Oh, well, that's good.
I'll
All
go
right.
through 2 and refresh myself, because I just have a couple.
Well, I'll go through it real quick. We've met part of my goal already just by getting this much of it
Okay.
to get that far. The one thing that Nicole really liked was the checklist.
Yep. And she deserves that, and so do we.
I think so too, and one thing, I don't know, did anybody else, I'm really proposing this to, well, you got a book on, did you get a book on Bridger Brewing,
Yeah.
the food bar?
That thing?
Did you follow that one?
No.
Okay.
I haven't looked at it, so.
I went through it a
got
little bit.
Well, my whole point is, it's not in the requirements. Jerry agreed with it. There's nothing to keep it out of the standards. Bernadette has it spoiled. I think one of our requirements need to be that we need to have a table of contents, and it will follow the same order and the same numbering system as the preliminary plat checklist.
Kind of like this one,
Yes,
Yes,
because this one's pretty darn
that's
easy
the one
to
that
go.
Bernadette did.
Oh, okay.
That's what I mean. We've been spoiled.
Yeah,
Because
Hers are
Nicole
always
wants it,
like
it
that.
makes it easy for everybody.
it does.
It
If,
does.
if there's something that's non-applicable
It's the same-
because it's a pivot corner, you
Yeah.
can group 2 or 3 things together.
Mm-hmm.
But you just go through the book one by one, you go down the list, everything's taken care
Does
of.
make sense.
You
That
gotta go
makes sense.
hunting in that white bug.
Yeah, you gotta go
There's
to
a
get
lot
to
of
the
fluff in
same-
there.
Oh, ton. This is for one split. I was thinking,
Right
what
on
in
the
the
counter.
world?
37-acre industrial
I-
lot.
Yeah. Yep.
okay, 14 minutes.
They're used to Bozeman, obviously.
Obviously.
Well, I think the gentleman was from Bozeman who did
Yeah, I
that.
think that's why, yes.
Well,
Um,
I won't say anything on record, but I'll share what I've found out about some of that down there.
So you're proposing that the checklist follow the subdivision regulations?
Well, the numbering system, I really don't care about, but whether it's our subdivision numbering system or Richland County's.
Right.
As long as it's continuous, but whatever we put in there, the very first tab I had was on the preliminary checklist, and theirs is exactly the same as ours, except they added a 37, which is what Nicole liked about going all the way back on whether it was a major or minor,
Okay.
a first subsequent type situation. That all that says if proposing a first minor subdivision or subsequent minor, copy of each instrument transfer pertaining to the subject parcel filed or recorded since July 1st, 1973. That's just part of the checklist, so that'll be the last item in the book.
I found out that is MCA code.
Okay.
Well, I was reasonably sure it was by the July 1st, 1973,
I know the 73 thing, but it
because
just,
the
like, overboard, but it's MCA.
new Constitution was written in 1972.
All right, I think that's a good idea. The checklist and following the regulation book in order.
And I didn't see, if you guys don't have it, it's kind of unfair. You're more than welcome to look through mine. And I don't put that in there very often. It says, good. There's a sample road maintenance agreement right in the subsequent, or in whatever they call it, supplemental deals for a subdivider to use. I'm
Page
thinking about
41.
Bernadette's out there on
Don't
Randy's.
have it. We didn't get the supplemental.
It's not saying that they have to use it, but rather than seeing 14 different varieties of legalese that may or may not be the same or have the right intention, if we got a sample in there, they don't have any excuse for not putting it in there. Because the worst case scenario, all they have to do is fill in the blanks. And that was,
You have a,
on
Mark.
page, I'm sorry,
This
Jay.
here's a big one too.
Page 41's where I was at.
41, okay, I have on page 19
Oh,
and 18. But 18 is really short and sweet. Number 17, shall be drafted by a professional engineer licensed in Montana. Can be a surveyor. Number 19, 25, transportation impact, this is important. Impact analysis or transportation plan shall be drafted by a professional engineer licensed in Montana. Transportation analysis, the following information is required.
can I make a suggestion to save us time?
Sure.
I reversed the paragraphs and added at the end of B as listed.
These are-
Meaning that if you don't need it, you don't have to do it.
Well,
They
who-
put the
who
cart before the horse.
Who decides if you need it or not?
What it really boils down to is the road count.
It's not just the road count, it's discuss how daily traffic would be generated, indicate who will pay the cost of installing and maintaining dedicated and/or private driveways. Does he have to go around to every lot owner? Explain any proposed closure or modification of existing roads. How much is this going to cost? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
I
6,
know
7, 8,
engineers cost a lot of money.
Nine of them. Discuss whether any of the individual lots or tracts have access directly to arterial collector roads, or if so, the reason access was not provided by means of a road within the subdivision. He's got to write that up. Do you realize what that's gonna cost at $100 an hour?
Well, that's what I mean by putting the cart before the horse, because that last one says the impact analysis or plan, if deemed necessary by the governing body or by MDT, shall be drafted and submitted. I reversed those paragraphs, put as listed after the shall be submitted. And then if the governing bodies say, as in the commission and or MDT, that's who decides, not Nicole,
Yeah.
then that's what you do. But if, I see it being overreach because of where they are. They've got flat ground, they've got a hell of a lot more roads than what we do. I mean,
Right, I'm just-
in terms of the way they're set up. No, I don't like it. There will come a time when it needs to happen. Horse Creek's probably one of them.
I just don't agree with all the engineering costs. I mean, it's just,
It's unbelievable.
it
We're
makes,
talking $10,000 right off the bat,
I can tell you
Well-
it's probably more than that.
probably.
And the problem is, if any of that stuff is written up, then you sell your lots, let's say. Who's gonna make sure that every construction guy that buys, are gonna comply with whatever in the world they wrote up in that engineering thing anyway? It's just a bunch of extra paper, right? I mean, unless you're gonna go through and every time they sell a lot, somebody's gonna go over there and say, here's the regulations that were written up with this subdivision to follow, you know, for your driveway maintenance and access through here and whatever. It's just a bunch of extra costs that nobody's gonna ever read again.
Describe the provisions considered for dust control.
We're gonna catch it all.
We're gonna put little swifters up and down the ditch.
Every driveway's got a Swiffer.
I have to admit, I got laughing, and I did show this to a professional surveyor to see what he had to say.
And what did he say?
He couldn't even listen, it was my husband.
Oh,
I had it in. Herb knew who I was referring to. He said if he got to do it, he'd love it.
You know, there's places that I could see that it happening, but I guess rather than, and I'm not normally a Pollyanna by any stretch of the imagination, to me, if it was reversed, then there's only two bodies to blame. One's either the county commissioners or MDT. And if MDT requires it, doesn't make any difference, we're gonna have to do it anyway.
Oh, I guess, but I can't even fathom them requiring that. But I would like to have, the road supervisor in on when we do the roads.
I'd like to have the road supervisor return calls and actually come look at the driveways that he gets paid for.
Well, that I don't know. You know more about that, Herb, than
I
I
see
do.
fire
but
in your eyes.
yeah. Yep.
It's not like it used to be.
I used to maintain River Road.
Oh,
about 8 miles of it, up, almost up to your corner, to the cattle
Do you
guard.
have extra copies? Can I read it and then give it
And
back?
Bob and Zoll and I kind of had
You can tell I've had
a
it
gentleman's
how many
agreement,
years?
unless my grader was broken, I didn't call him.
I don't even know. 2003.
If I called him personally,
Do you
he'd
see
take
my
care of the
house?
road in a heartbeat,
I
anybody
throw
else
nothing
called
away.
him.
Right.
Because,
But the amazing part.
but I'd go
is
grade the road when it was snowing, when it was raining, so there was moisture. What I did would hold up a hell of a lot longer
Oh, yeah.
than what they did.
Yeah.
Not because I did a better job, but because there
ground
was
was
more
ready for it.
moisture. And what went down stayed down.
Yeah.
Helen has to.
And there were times that Bob wasn't as bad about it as Dana was. Dana loved the road to death sometimes. He'd go out there and grade it way too often and pile shit up.
Right.
But that's beside the point. But this guy's been around now for a year. I've called him 3 times. Once I caught him on the first call and he did take care of the business. That was only because the crew was there. The other 2 times I haven't even had a return phone call from him. And all you have to do is go look at the Amish driveways to see whether or not he's doing his job.
Right.
There's no culverts. The grade will cost the county money because everything's gonna wash down off the hill off of their driveways onto the county road.
We gotta get going. It's gonna shut this
We're gonna-
down.
Yeah, you can cut us off.
Are they locking
All I
us
did
out
learn
or
my
locking
Amish
us